welcome to my channel. Oh, actually, I'm gonna start saying our channel because this is gonna be more about just me. This is going to be the family vlog. I'm gonna try and incorporate everybody as much as I can. I actually brainstormed all week and have a ton of ideas for videos that I want to do. Some on the serious side, some on the fun, some on the informational side. It's gonna be like a really good scope, and I'm excited about it. And if there's certain videos that you guys want to see going on, please comment and let me know. I love getting new, fresh ideas, and anything to keep me from doing the same thing over and over and over again so it doesn't get boring would be fabulous. Today's vlog is a little more on the serious side. I'm going to talk about me and Ryan's last experience with loss. If you follow us here on our vlog, you know that we just talked about the loss of our daughter at 23 weeks in November. What some of you may not know, and some of you do know, is that we actually got pregnant right after that again. It was very, very quick, very unexpected. It was a very crazy time. Going through pregnancy after loss is a whole new experience. You have that joy, you have that excitement, but then you also have the terror and the fear that goes along with losing another child, which is very, very real. And so walking through that with Ryan during that time was craziness. We also had some struggles in our marriage after we found out we were pregnant, which that's going to be a more in-depth vlog for another date. Me and him are working on that. If you know anything about pregnancy and statistics and stuff like that, your chances of miscarriage and loss drops immensely once you get into your second trimester. So second trimester losses are kind of like a 1 in 60 kind of thing. When we experienced this, walking through this, our midwife actually said that she had never seen anything like this before. Like, this is really like a 1 in 1 millionth of a chance. We just drew the short straw again on our pregnancy. Yes, baby. What's in your mouth? What do you need?
Is Daddy almost home?
No, Daddy will be home in a little bit. I'll let you know when Daddy's almost home. Why do you need my kombucha?
Because I like kombucha.
Do you like kombucha?
I love you.
I love you, baby. Mwah. Someone needed kisses. This loss is a little bit easier for me to talk about. The main reason being is that I was very close to God during this time. Losing this baby was still rough. It was hard, don't get me wrong, but I just want you to understand, like, talking about it now is a lot easier because I have so much hope in heaven and in God and the restoration that He is bringing for my family and the redemptive power that He has. So our second loss was crazy. We had an initial appointment. We had heard the heartbeat already, which was very exciting. I had actually thought that I had lost the baby earlier on, like around 4 or 5 weeks. I started bleeding, but then went in and got a sonogram and figured out that I had, I forgot what it was called, but basically like I forgot what it was, but basically wherever the baby implanted in my uterus, it caused my uterus to have a bleed. And so it started to bleed really bad. It was only that one time, but I thought it was like my period. I thought that was my regular period, and I had lost the baby. And then ended up keeping my OB appointment that I had scheduled for 10 weeks because I wanted to make sure, like, everything had passed, everything was good, copacetic and whatnot. And when I went in for that OB appointment, they actually told me that we hadn't lost the baby. The baby was still there. We could see the heartbeat, and I was right around 10 weeks, 5 days. So that was a crazy moment for me and Ryan to go through that experience of loss again, and then to find out that we still had that baby. It was exciting. It was heartwarming. I remember him crying when I called and told him, which was, I mean, anybody would cry. Obviously, you thought you lose your baby and then your baby's still there. But then to have to walk through that loss again just a few weeks later, we went in for our 14-week appointment with our midwife. And I had kind of already told Ryan that I had a lot of apprehensions about this appointment. I was scared to go in and listen for the heartbeat because that's that's what happened last time. You went in, you went to find the heartbeat, and the heartbeat wasn't there. And he was doing a really good job about comforting me and keeping me calm. When in reality, what happened is we went in at 14 weeks, couldn't find the heartbeat again, had to go in for another sonogram the next day, and then the sonotech confirmed that we had lost the baby. It actually looks like we had lost the baby around 12 weeks, which I guess would be considered first, second trimester loss. I don't know exactly. She also told us that it looked like the baby had a growth around its neck, so it was a chromosomal defect that was wrong with this baby. It was nice to be able to hear something that actually caused the loss. Like, it wasn't just like we lost another baby for no reason. At the same time, it was heartbreaking because me and Ryan were in this euphoria of we thought we lost our baby and now we have our baby and God's protecting us, and then, oh, just kidding, now you've lost your baby again. And I don't want to say like we had this false hope, because we still have hope. God gives us hope every day. We know we're going to see these children again. But it's like when you're a Christian walking these paths and you feel like you're doing everything right, you feel like you're untouchable, like nothing's going to happen to me, you can't hurt me, blah, 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 blah. When in reality, Satan is after us more than anybody else. I mean, we're the ones that are on the path towards God. We're the ones that are bringing more into the kingdom, and Satan wants to take us down more than anybody. It reminds me of the story of Job. If you don't know the story of Job, I highly recommend you read it. Basically, he was a man who loved God, was a man after God's own heart, and Satan came to God and told God that if he would let him afflict Job with all of these painful things, loss of children, loss of land, loss of his house, and even to the point where he inflicted him with sickness, that if God would let him inflict him with all of these things, that he would curse God and turn away from God. And God basically said, do it, that's fine, but Job is not going to curse me. I know him. He loves me. He knows I am his Lord. And it's an incredible story. So that's a lot of what I get reminded of going through these times of pain, is Satan is after me and my family and my brothers and sisters in Christ, because we are the ones that are following after God wholeheartedly, and the ones that are bringing more into the kingdom and pulling them away from Satan's hold, which makes us prime targets. Walking through this, though, was still very, very hard. It was easier because we were so much closer to God during this time. We had started going to a new church, and the people that we had met there were fabulous. So walking through this miscarriage was hard. Something a little bit different about this miscarriage than our loss with Violet. We didn't know the sex of the baby. It was too early to be able to find out. So we named the baby Sammy. We thought that would be a good, just generic male or female name. When we get to heaven, we can call a little girl or our little boy Sammy. I feel like it was a little boy, but that's just me. So the process of losing this baby was a lot different than Violet. With Violet, I had gone into the hospital and been induced with Cytotec pills, and I had her within like a matter of hours of that happening. We were actually in the hospital one night and then went home the next day. This baby, though, was different because I've been dealing with a lot of PTSD since Violet, and a lot of that stems from hospitals. Driving by hospitals and seeing hospitals makes me have a little bit of a panic attack. It's weird, I know, but it happens. I had a little bit of white coat syndrome before everything with Violet, and then when we lost Violet and had to go through all this with the hospital, it was like magnified 10 times more. And it had nothing to do with the hospital. The hospital with Violet handled everything great. It was just, I registered hospitals with, that's where bad things happened. People die there, people don't get to take home babies. That's just where my thought process went. So when we found out we had lost this baby and we were given options for the different things that we could do, a D&C was one that was given to us, which I really, really didn't want to do. If you're familiar with that, it's basically like they go in and basically pull the baby out, essentially. And that scared me a whole lot. That's not something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to do anything in the hospital. I wanted to stay as far away from the hospital as possible. The other option that we were given was to kind of wait it out. And now that I knew that the baby was gone, that my body would register, hey, the baby's gone, and then pass it on my own. So we decided to go with that plan. I say we, it was me, obviously. My husband didn't have a lot to say. He was gonna support me no matter what happened. I had decided that I wanted to wait it out and try and pass the baby on my own. The last thing I wanted to do was go in and have some, it's like a surgical procedure. The waiting game was really, really rough, y'all. Sometimes I look back and wonder how I did it. I actually walked around with the baby for another 3 weeks after we found out that the baby was gone. So me and my husband actually were praying for a natural miscarriage. That's what my husband was praying for, probably more fervently than I was. I was still actually dealing with the fact that we had lost the baby, but praying that I would be able to do this on my own without any kind of outside help, without any kind of surgical procedure. It got to a point close to the 3-week mark where, especially with my family getting nervous, his family getting nervous, you don't want, I think like the baby can become toxic to your body, something like that. I didn't want to get sick, obviously. People began to get more worried. I had reached out to a doctor and found another option where I could go do kind of what I did with Violet and have a side effect pill, which it's these pills that they put up by your uterus, and it like naturally induces you into labor. I say naturally, it's not really natural. I've had 2 babies naturally, full-term babies naturally, and the pain that I experienced with the side attack induction with Violet was night and day. Like it was rough, and she wasn't even full term. She was only 23 weeks, and that was one of the most painful things that I've ever been through. Not just of course emotionally, but physically. Medical inductions are just so much different than letting your body deal with it on its own, with its natural chemicals that it induces you to go into labor. So I had all these apprehensions about what I was going to do, what I was going to do if this baby wasn't going to come out, and then, God be the glory, I went into labor on a Tuesday night, right at like 3 weeks after we had found out the baby was gone. So I was technically 17 weeks. I mean, the baby wasn't there, but I was still pregnant. I was technically 17 weeks pregnant. I went into labor on my own late at night. I didn't actually think I was in labor because that's how I am all the time. I had started having very, very severe contractions. And I just told myself, like, if I could go to bed and sleep, then it wasn't labor. Nothing was happening. So I went to bed that night and was fine. I actually took my husband to work the next morning, and on the way to work, I was having some very uncomfortable contractions. On the way home, it got worse. I got back to the apartment with all 4 boys, because we had our half-son that week also, and I was like, okay, I got to get somewhere where I can get some help, or I can get some help with the boys, be able to do this. So I actually went down the street to my parents' house. My dad's a paramedic. He was home. And I have little brothers, big family, so they could help me out with the boys. So I got to my parents' house, threw them the children, ran upstairs to my mom's bathtub because I didn't want to sit on the pot. Obviously, I didn't want to have the baby into the toilet. Got in my mom's bathtub and immediately pushed out the baby. And it was it was a surreal experience. The baby was very obviously a baby. Fingers, toes, face, nose. You could see a little bit of the abnormalities on the back of its neck. It didn't come out with the placenta, so the baby was actually kind of hanging out by the cord. So I ended up asking for some scissors, cutting the umbilical cord, giving the baby to my dad, who wrapped it up real nice for us. And then I hung out upstairs in my parents' room until I was able to pass the placenta, and then I did that just fine. The bleeding afterwards was not the same as having a full-grown baby. It was very light. I think I only bled for a couple days. I still kept myself on bed rest for 3 days like I would if I had a full-term child. I wanted to make sure that I took care of myself as best as could, drank lots of water, ate food. I'm not recommending that anybody do this. I think it's very important to, especially if you're worried, to get things checked out. I'm also very in tune with my body though. I've had 2 babies. Actually, this baby, I actually had 4 babies naturally if you count Violet, and then this baby. So I'm very in tune with my body. I know what it's doing. I know what's bad. I know what's not good. So after the placenta and everything came out, I could tell that I was healing. Everything was going good for the next few days. I took it very, very easy. And then going forward, my period came back within like 4 weeks. Everything was very normal. My health was good. Watched my temperature. All of this to say that walking through miscarriage, infant loss at any stage is hard for anybody. I'm very grateful that God answered my prayer, that I was able to do this on my own terms, without having to go into the hospital. Like I said, that was the last thing I wanted to do. And that's the blessing that I look at in this storm, that even though I was dealing with the loss of another baby that I desperately wanted, God was still with me. He still had his arms around me. He still gave me that abundant peace. And there were people there to help me right when I needed them to. My mother-in-law went and picked up my husband at work and brought him home so he could help take care of me. And I was able to do it on my own, which is what I really, really wanted. And me and my husband buried the baby in a little flower pot that sits on our front porch. Not very many people know that's what it's there for, but that's what it is. We buried our baby in a little flower pot, said a prayer, said a few words, and have been walking through it since. It's been a crazy experience. It's been a crazy last year, but I wouldn't be able to be where I am today if it wasn't for God in my life and the redemptive power that he has in everything that he does. I mean, that's one of the best things about being a follower of Christ, is even though I'm walking through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because he is with me. And he has purpose in this pain. There's going to be a redemption story out of all of this that we have been through. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this story. It wasn't too heartbreaking or hard for you to hear. I'm gonna put a little picture at the end of our baby. I haven't shared it with, maybe like 3 people have seen this picture. We snapped a little picture of baby Sammy after we lost. I'm gonna say him because I felt like it was a boy, but it could still be a girl. We don't know. Snapped a little picture of him after we lost him. But I also want you to see this picture and just see how amazing God is in his power to create. Like, this baby was only 12 weeks when it passed, and it has a nose. He has a nose, he has fingers, he has toes, he has a belly button. Like, it's so incredible to see the work of God's hands, even at such a small age of 12 weeks old in the womb. And I love God. I love his power. I love what he has done and is doing for me in my life. And I hope that this video can bring some solace to somebody, maybe answer some questions for you, and make you guys see a little bit into our family and the things that we've been dealing with, and why we're so crazy about Jesus because of everything that he's done for us. So I will see you guys here in a few days. Bye.